Hello, and welcome to my channel, Lana the Educator, your go-to destinations for all things education related. I am Lana the Educator. Whether you're a student striving for success, a dedicated teacher shaping young minds, a paraprofessional making a difference, or an administrator leading the way, this channel is your place for inspiration and insights and invaluable resources. On this channel, I hope for you to explore with me the latest educational trends, tackle pressing issues facing the education sector, and share stories of triumph and innovation from classrooms around the globe. I am Lana, the educator. Today's topic is going to be the latest educational trends, specifically, what are the most effective formats for delivering microlearning content in different educational contexts. So if we're talking about educational trends, then this would be in reference to things like artificial intelligence or AI, gamification, personalized learning, the STEM curriculum, soft skills training, hybrid learning, blockchain, digital citizenship, e-learning, augmented reality, and teacher professional development. These are just some of the educational trends that are out there for us now. But before we address our topic in detail today, I want to point out how much educational innovation is important for us to consider as a step in embracing educational trends. When we think about what benefits does challenging approaches and embracing experiment have for educators in the Caribbean? For one, we have to look at the fact that it leads to progress, it leads to embracing new ideas, it leads to technologies and methodologies that really enhance the educational experiences for our students, for our learners of all ages. So in essence, it really leads to educational innovation, and this is an important aspect of looking at educational trends. So we can't deny that there's really a pressing need to revolutionize learning to empower the next generation of our learners, especially here in the Caribbean. And since there has been a shift towards this sort of knowledge-based economy, it's really become essential for us as educators to acquire the knowledge and skills and competencies needed to cater to these type of digital natives. It is also important and has become essential for us to provide our students with these skills and competencies as well. So that means we need to align our curricula to the demands of these students in this century, in this 21st century here. And we can do this by harnessing the potential of technology to really enhance the educational access. So in the Caribbean, we really need to be able to bridge these socioeconomic disparities. We have to preserve our cultural heritage and improve our academic landscape. So how do we encourage educational innovation? First, we really have to look at embracing a holistic approach that's really going to address the unique challenges and opportunities within this region. So to start with, we can think about preparing for technological advancements, and that means integrating technology in teaching and learning, which we already know, right? We have to harness the potential of the technology to enhance educational access, the effectiveness of that in preparing students for the future. We can also look at incorporating Caribbean culture and Caribbean history into the curriculum to make learning more relatable for and meaningful for our students. And I think the Caribbean Examination Council has already been doing that in terms of their drive to make their content more culturally relevant. Very important for us to do because of the inequities that we have in the Caribbean. We need to implement strategies to really provide support and resources for students from disadvantaged backgrounds. And that means providing scholarships and enough scholarships. That means providing mentorship programs and community outreach initiatives in order to really address the issues that we are facing in the Caribbean region and to encourage educational innovation. Just generally in the Caribbean, because in the last few years we've had some unrest generally there in Venezuela. So we've had the migration and the immigration of Venezuelans into and across the Caribbean region, and particularly in Trinidad and Tobago. For historically, the Caribbean has been a place for migration, inter-Caribbean migration and settlement. So we've had, especially in Trinidad and Tobago, you've had the East Indians, you've had Syrian Lebanese community, you have other Caribbean islanders, and now in recent times we've had the Venezuelan community, which will eventually become the Venezuelan, if you want to think about them as a diaspora in that way. So that means we have to promote multilingual education. And that means offering opportunities for students to learn proficiency in multiple languages. And even before we've had the influx of Venezuelans into and across the Caribbean, many schools were using and teaching Spanish. I think that has helped in some extent in terms of assimilation of migrants in the country. So the Caribbean is really linguistically diverse, and we need to promote linguistic and multilingual education. Teaching students about sustainability conservation is also very important given our location here in the Caribbean region with our own unique issues, environmental issues. So teaching them about sustainability and conservation is very important. And of course, we need to engage our stakeholders. We have to enter into partnerships with local organizations, with businesses, with government agencies to help provide additional resources and expertise and to help in supporting these educational innovation initiatives that we might want to engage in. So by embracing innovation, we can really move into, which is what is the topic of today's podcast, looking at educational trends and how we can incorporate that into our educational system. And specifically, as our topic focuses on today, the effective formats for delivering these educational trends. And I want to focus on microlearning content, especially in different educational contexts. Microlearning is really a technique that involves having bite-sized lessons to engage learners in a particular process. So it's a form of instructional technology where the focus is really on keeping the information short and relevant to maintain concentration. And we know how important that has become since we are now living in a very fast-paced society where we consume information at a fast rate. So we decide in mere seconds what is going to be the information we want to spend our time focusing on. And many of the apps that young people use and even we use, we find that our attention span is very short. So we're flipping through TikTok or Instagram, and even YouTube has had to adjust and really start incorporating their shorts in order to keep up with that trend so that their users basically will not move from one platform over to another. So teachers now are faced with also moving with the learners in terms of giving them shorter content, bite-sized information that they will be able to manage and maintain their concentration. And microlearning is really done as a set of compact e-learning modules, which is really meant to reduce learner fatigue. So you don't want your learners burnt out by maybe the learners of 50 years ago would sit down and sustain and read material or read an excerpt, a story, a book for hours. That's no longer the case. So we move to microlearning, where you have this design of modules where you look at micro steps and using these micro steps in the digital environment So just consider the concept of doing, if we look at a traditional lesson, doing that step by step, but really not moving through all 7 steps or all 10 steps at once, but really giving a micro boost, maybe step 1 and 2, and then taking a break in that way. So these activities that you do in these environments, which we're going to look at in a bit, has to be incorporated into the learner's daily routines and tasks. So it is something that I was excited about trying. And I think to some extent, many of us have done this already in some form or the other, maybe not sustained, maybe not intentional, maybe not researched to a great extent, but, or maybe not in the digital environment, which is what we want to look at now. So microlearning, you might ask, how is this different from e-learning approaches? How is this different from what we know e-learning to be? But microlearning often, it tends to looking at that push technology, which again emphasizes reducing that cognitive load on the learners. You don't want to burn them out. So breaking the information down into topical bite-sized chunks really helps to increase attention and promote higher retention rates. So basically that means you break it down, you make it smaller, short space of time, the students are going to remember it. And this is what we want because we want them to learn. And this is done within a framework where you have certain parameters that surround how you're going to look at time. So you have to have your microlearning being as concise, being short courses, and we ourselves as educators probably have done these things on Coursera or MOOCs learning, these kinds of things. This is what we're looking to move towards to help our students learn. Then you look at the content as a parameter as well. How is the content going to be divided into smaller segments that you or we would usually cover in a single topic? We're now tasked with breaking those down into smaller segments. And then, of course, we can't stray from our curriculum, which is our root, right? Is it covering a specific topic or a series of short courses covering a bigger module? How do you want to approach your micro learning there? So are you going to look at your content area? You look at your plan of work, at your scheme or your course outline, and say, I'm going to utilize micro learning here for this particular module. And then it can vary. The form is also what format, what form are you going to engage or use microlearning? What form are you going to do? Like knowledge nuggets. How are you going to do it in terms of episodes? Are you going to vary depending on skill sets? So that is something you need to consider as well. And then the process. The process of microlearning really involves an integrated learning segment, and this could be in the form of in-person session, video, or text, and then you want to follow this up by some sort of assessment to gauge whether the student has learned. And this is not a foreign concept to anybody who has been teaching, right? So maybe you've been doing it in the face-to-face format. The challenge here is for you to now do it in the digital format. And many of us, by force or otherwise, between 2020, 2021, we were forced to do this to some extent. And then you decide what your media is going to be. Is it going to be an in-person or is it going to be in class? Are you going to do it as distance learning or remote, right? All of these are based on multimedia activities. So this is the framework and the parameters which you would engage in microlearning, which is breaking that information down into topical bite-sized chunks to really help your students learn. So this activity, maybe you want to do it by having them listen to an informational podcast or watching a video clip or infographics that you could have created. So once this content is complete, you then try to follow it up by some short form of assessment, a quiz or a micro game or even a reflection on something that they would have viewed. Okay, so this is one of the educational trends that we're looking at, micro learning. Now the content of the design really depends on how you want to deliver this, so the mode of delivery. For example, if you're using a podcast, that's more suitable for self-paced learning. So the self-paced learner who actually has access to material or the relevant source of material that's needed to watch a podcast. And that's a challenge in itself, which is a topic for another day, of issues we have in the Caribbean where there isn't access to the equipment or the material that's needed for, engaging in some of these trends. But, reading a paragraph from a book would be more functional for the more traditional learners, which we have been doing. But if we are really mandated and thinking about our students, we really need to work on the objective of having them become globalized and digital citizens to be able to compete and collaborate in the globalized environment. So keeping up to date with these trends is very important for us to engage in. So what are some of the effective formats we can use for delivering microlearning content? Earlier I mentioned podcasts, but we can also use short videos. So if you have your content area, you are the individual teacher, you've planned your work, maybe you want to make a series of 2 to 5 minute videos, which explains the concepts that you want taught, or you make those videos demonstrating specific tasks. And many pre-videos have already been done for you on YouTube or other areas, other educational sites that you can use to, forego this. Creating how-to videos or searching up how-to videos that demonstrates particular things are one of the ways that or formats you can use to deliver micro learning content. And I have used this as well, creating my own individual videos, and I find that they work quite well, especially because they are short videos and they just get to the point so that students are able to retain, just a bit of information in a short space of time. Infographics, I've recently started creating infographics myself. And, these provide visual summaries. So they're good in terms of skills, summarizing skills and presenting key information related to the particular topic. So you can also use the infographics as a way to assess your students by having them create infographics themselves and summarizing information that they may have watched on one of your mini videos. So that's one way you can use microlearning to your advantage. Interactive quizzes, many of them are online. They are easy to set up now. So you just take your traditional multiple choice questions or quizzes and you put them in a digital format. There, there's Prezi. You can even use your Google Forms. There's quizzes. There are so many applications out there that you can use to create your quizzes for assessment in understanding those short lessons that you might develop. Or you can even look at creating scenario-based quizzes where the learners make the decision and receive the immediate feedback. And that's a form of microlearning. And I'm sure many of us have done this already. So you see, you are already on the path to, utilizing microlearning as a educational strategy, educational trend. You're on trend. And then you can use podcasts and audio clips. And I have now made the foray into using this form of microlearning as an educational trend. So making short audio recordings that really summarize key points or provide insights on a topic is one of the simplest and easiest way. I think maybe the audio clips way easier because you can use YouTube, you can use, there are many video recording apps out there. You can even use your WhatsApp and record and then upload them to your classroom and have students listen to your explanation of particular concepts there. Or you can even utilize what is already out there. For example, you have interviews with experts already discussing specific aspects related to learning content. So those are, you know, some of the most effective formats for delivering microlearning content with examples. So for teachers, your videos could be uploaded here to YouTube or to your online classroom or to whatever is your learning management system that you have, where you explain your concept or demonstrate your problem solving, allow students to demonstrate their problem solving techniques. You can use what you already have at your disposal, what you are already familiar with in terms of tools like Google Slides or Microsoft PowerPoint, and you create these interactive presentations. So you can embed your quizzes there, you can embed your polls there, and make different clickable elements that just makes learning very interesting and fun for the students, where they engage with the content at their own pace and they're receiving immediate format over and over again. And if you come to your mini quiz or your polls, right, there's Kahoot out there, there's quizzes, and Kahoot is really fun for students because it's, it aligns itself with that idea of gamification, which in itself is another educational trend. And to create, you're getting as well the quick assessment being done, and you're able to gather feedback from your students during the lesson, so real-time feedback as well. So those help to reinforce learning and really keep students engaged. And you can look at your audio recording, so you can record your discussions on the specific topics, and you can share them even via email if the student might not have immediate access in class to whatever platform you are using, or you can put it on your class website or a podcast platform. So students can listen to these recordings and communicate during independent or study time. Now, there's nothing wrong with remaining with our traditional ways. You can still utilize microlearning as an educational trend that way by looking at text-based resources. So you can curate your own articles. This would work really well for history, social studies teachers, um, geography, English teachers, literature teachers, looking at blog posts or short readings that are related to the lesson or topic. And you can share them through a class newsletter or through social media. And in this way, you can encourage your students to read and reflect on these resources. And that enhances their understanding and their critical thinking skills. You can also look at, which I am yet to attempt. I'm going to try this and maybe get back to you as a form of microlearning, because there are so many others that I've just mentioned that I've tried. But you can look at interactive e-learning modules. So you can use things like Adobe Captive, right? Where you can include multimedia elements, where there are interactive simulations and self-assessment quizzes. And then you can ensure that those help to facilitate active learning, which is really what we want as we get on this educational trend. And very easy to do, social media posts. Now, it might not work for all teachers if you like your privacy and you like to separate that, your job from, your dealing with any social media platform. But you can share your bite-sized tips or interesting facts on social media. So you can use Twitter, X, and you can use Instagram or TikTok, which is where your students find themselves most times. And this would encourage them to follow class hashtags or different accounts, which would foster continuous learning outside of the classroom, which is really what we want. Good. So I've offered you some effective formats for delivering microlearning content, and I hope that it's been helpful so that you are able to use them. You can also look at microlearning games. So I've been trying, it's been a struggle I tried to use Scratch, and many of you out there might have some suggestions. Please let me know. I would love to know. I think it's supposed to be a simple form, but I encountered a major hiccup. So I have to go back to I had the concept, but actually putting it together, because I think I need to, even though Scratch has the coding done, I think for what I want to happen, I needed to do a little bit of coding myself. And I'm not yet thoroughly adept at that. But you can move forward in terms of using microlearning games designed to reinforce your learning objectives, right? These might be able to challenge your learners to question, um, to answer questions within a short space of time, and maybe earn points for correct answers. And that gives them rewards, and it works well for those competitive students, and it works well for collaboration as well as being fun. Augmented reality. I had so much fun creating augmented reality lessons. It's so exciting to see, you know, things just pop up in front of your face, and you can move around with your phone and do these different things that provide these immersive learning environments for really hands-on practice and simulation. So it really helps students to maybe practice concepts if you incorporate your augmented reality skills into jumping on the microlearning educational trend. So thank you so much for listening. I am Lana, the educator, talking on the topic of educational trends, specifically looking at microlearning and the most effective formats for delivering microlearning content in different educational contexts. Remember, you empower minds, you ignite curiosity. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications.